All right. Race brain. Hyrox Rundown. It's early, but this is what happens whenever Hyrox decides to do a middle of the week major, and the rest of us aren't good enough to be a full-time athlete and coach like Bracken. We have to do 8 a.m. It's your boy, Matt Mason, joined alongside Bracken Crocker, Jack Bauer, Michelle Navarro. I feel like I just saw you all. How are you doing, gang?
Buzzing. Absolutely buzzing.
It was legit.
Best. I'm just gonna say it. It's the best major we've had.
It was definitely exciting.
For sure. I
feel like
agree.
we see that every single time.
No, get out of here, Jack.
I think the one so far this year was, well, I don't want to speak for everybody. I think Amsterdam was the best. And I don't even think it was that close. And now I think we've got a new one.
Marcus, it's a struggle.
Yeah. He's still up.
He just never went to sleep.
Still up.
Yeah, just never.
Never went to sleep.
What yesterday showed is that there is a difference between a good athlete race and a great viewing race. Like the course we'll get into, it was goofy. The times don't matter, but it was incredible to watch. And it may have been maddening on course, but it was a great product to view. And the best thing to view is not a blowout. And they created a course and a field of athletes that it was tough to get a blowout out of. And instead we had the opposite, which was just a dogfight. And it was incredible.
Yeah. Even after some just amazing fast times at the front, you still wanted to see how the athletes in the mid pack were doing because there were championship spots on the line, and those came down, as we'll get to literally under a second. So yeah, you had battles all the way from start to finish throughout the field, and yeah, I totally agree. It was the best Hyrox race that I've ever seen.
You felt like you could watch it all. You could see them going lap by lap, so you could see the people who were in the back. So we got what we wanted finally, which was to see the chase pack or the pack that was going for the world champ spots. We actually had the opportunity to watch those running races in the back of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about the race itself. But let's just address the elephant in the room. We have talked to some of the athletes that raced, and we also saw it with our own eyes. And I want to preface this because I was getting some heat on the Hyrox YouTube yesterday and in my DMs. The race on the men's and women's side were amazing, and the athletes put out incredible performances. We saw some amazing. Oh yeah, hell yeah!
He's on a flight too.
Hell yeah. We got JK. In
airplane
the
Wi-Fi.
comments. Yeah, I can't. You know what? I'm gonna get coffee with JK in Houston, and I can't wait. I've just been waiting to have coffee with this man.
Do you think he transitions like from booth to counter and counter to chair just like faster than anyone else in that coffee shop?
I think that JK attacks life the way that he attacks the rock zone. I think from appointments to Georgie asks him to go take the trash out. He's running out to the curb, to the waistband. I don't even know what you guys call it down under. Running out to the bend. He's running out to the bend. He's running out to the car. I mean, that dude is just attacking life like he attacks rock zone. The athletes' performances were incredible. And what I'm about to say takes nothing away from that. I think it's fair to say that we don't need to spend too much time on this, but the courses are not all the same. They're not all the same. I just looked it up on the women's side. Does anyone want to take a guess at how many women ran a PR yesterday?
14.
Probably like at least 12.
Not quite. 10. Everybody 1 through 10 ran a PR. Camila Massa, great athlete, finished 9th, ran a PR. Right. Vivian Tefudo, also great athlete who, has not been healthy this year. We'll just call it like it is. She has not been healthy. She ran a 3-minute PR and took third.
Join the
right?
sub 60 club.
Join the sub 60 club. You look on the men's side, every Ryan Kent, out of all the finishers, Ryan Kent finished 13th. Ryan Kent went 58-30 and a little bit of change and Kent is a great athlete, but a 4-minute lunge and a 5:15 wall ball. 9:50. If BK, you've been following this a long time. If I told you that there was someone who had 9 minutes, spent 9 minutes on lunges and wall balls, would you think that they were mid 58s?
That's impossible. Which is what we said from the start, which is just that the grid times can't mean anything. And this wasn't even grid. This was whatever the next level of like rolling on Quaalude Hyrox courses. This was we're on the moon here, right? It's okay. It doesn't detract from the athletes, which is the thing that you're getting heat on. It doesn't detract from the athletes. They can't control it. They didn't set it up. They showed up and they performed. But this is a championship race, which is positioning is all that matters. And we saw a battle for every position. No one looks back and says, well, some people do, but Mo Farah sucks because he didn't set the world record at every single world championship and Olympics. He raced everyone who showed up and he beat them. And that's what people did yesterday. And so we shouldn't even waste time selling their performances with time talk because the time doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't, but it does. And this is the only thing that I'm going to bring.
No, I'm saying Hyrox shouldn't promote a world record because it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah,
this wasn't about a world record. This was about a championship.
I think what Matt was going to say is if we fast forward, presuming they use the same system, these fast times count for the next 11 months and 30 or so days towards a qualifying spot. Yep. And we're just repeating the same cycle that we've had before where it's like, you run a fast time, you're basically good for a full year. And it's like, yes, these athletes had to do something to even get here in the first place. But it's like, how can you say that these times unadjusted are like equivalent? What was it? Something like 30 to 40 total turns that you're going to make over the course of this 3 to 4 laps. If we fast forward to Chicago for World Championships, that's going to be 8 turns total. Like this isn't even remotely close to the same type.
Well, see, that's funny. That's funny. Jack, can you go ahead and pull up the results of Jack's butt? That's funny because we all thought that it was going to be the opposite. We thought, okay, 30 turns, it's going to be slow. And it's the exact opposite. But BK, I was actually I was laying in bed last night thinking about this.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me.
Well, I was thinking about our conversation. And you said something on Tuesday of like, you said, because we're talking about should people show up and take spots? And you said, yeah, you should box people out. And I said, but BK, that doesn't matter. It's the last major. I actually have completely changed my mind. If you get into one of these races, you should hope that it's a goofy course and you should take that spot because you could get last place. You could get last place and be pulled along to a time that bumps somebody else, that keeps somebody else out for the next 12 months. Like, I think we're at the point where majors are majors and you should qualify your way in. And the only auto qualifiers are winners of majors or top 3 at worlds. But I think that to include times of non-rock zone, and I know what Hyrox is going to say. They're going to say that it's 8.7K and it's always 8.7K. But we did the math yesterday, and if some of these athletes were running what we think they were running from a 1K perspective, that only left about a minute of rock zone time. And you're talking about people running 331Ks. What Hyrox course have you ever seen someone running a 331K and then with a minute of rock zone?
Yeah, that's drastically different.
So here's the takeaway from that for me, which is that all of this being said, it works out to be a net positive, in my opinion, because if you are an Elite 15 athlete, you are giving up the fast courses in theory to run these. You can't always do your local race. Not everyone wants to run a week or two before the race. And so this is your way to stay in the Elite 15. Like if you show up for this, you can't do the next one. And then you may not get a fast time. You can't go and run these rigged courses elsewhere. Like you may not be able to run Copenhagen. And then what do? Well, you do this and it's like, all right, at least this is one of my qualifiers moving forward. It allows you to stay in the system. The downside is it's hard to get into the system. Like if you didn't get to run this, you're looking at this going, well, I just lost 90 seconds of time for my next qualifier. But at least it rewards the athletes who are training for this and foregoing the fast courses for this. This gives them a fast course.
All right, Matt, you want me to pull up the adjustments?
Pull up the adjustments, Jack.
All right. Within 5 minutes of this race ending, I was like, I got to put these results in Jack's butt. So did this, and we've got Jack's updated top times. So right here, you can see on the top, we've got the women's results. Lauren actually ran a 56:23. I think it was actually a 58:11. The women's course was about 3.2% fast. She did nearly, in my opinion, based on all the numbers that I saw, she was super close to actually setting a world record that was there beforehand. Obviously, she set it by over a minute and a half. But if you take into account that this was a very fast course, she still was on world record time, and Joanna wasn't too far behind her. But yeah, you look across the board and all these 60 flat, sub 60 times, they're actually probably 61.5, 62.5 in reality, which is a little bit more in line with how we've seen performances in the past by a lot of these qualifiers. What do you guys think of these adjustments?
This is still a PR for Vivian Tefudo.
Yeah.
I want to be clear. This takes away from no one, but
nothing. No.
What we know about championship races is that you either do good or you get spit out and you crack. And we saw that happen, but you don't PR when you crack. And we saw people crack in PR. We saw people fade in PR, and we saw people crack and fade and still run really fast times. And so when you see across the board, people running really, really, really fast in the bottom third of the race, you know the course was good. That's all we're saying here. Now, the measurement, we just saw James Kelly. If you can throw that back up again, it says Anthony P. has analyzed the race course map, and it was, I'll be pedantic, 8.705 meters. I'm going to say it was 8.75 meters short per straightaway. No, but if that's supposed to be miles or K or whatever he wants it to mean.
I'm pretty sure that the rest of the world uses periods instead of commas there. I'm pretty sure he's saying
I'm
it's
talking
87.
about the M.
Right. I think he's saying meters, 8,700 meters, right? Which would be 8.7K.
Okay, we'll take it. Now, if that's the case, we can only trust that if he got to wheel the course. We know that there is a variance using any online mapping. If he's using wrist-based tracking or whatever, it's indoor. We can't trust any of that. However, if you could apply that to every other course we've done and see what that comes out to, maybe. But the reality is that you can't really come up with a stat that disproves that this was a historically fast course. Historically fast. It doesn't mean that James can't run the world record, because I think we all believe he can and probably will be the world record holder. And it doesn't mean that Lauren doesn't have a PR in her, because she does. All these people can run these times. You just can't all do it on the same day in a championship race. James cracked people doing what he did, and they still PR'd.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me is, I think you said it best, which is, in a championship race, you can't have people fade and people crack, and you can't have people fade and crack and walk away with a PR. That to me, and I don't want to spend more. We've already spent 14 minutes on this, so we can move on. But I think that's still inconsistent, which is why I think, for me, I don't care about the times. I want to go back to what I said at the beginning. This was the most electric race I have watched since the World Championship. It was so entertaining that I watched it again last night. And although yes, I am obsessed with Hyrox, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't watch races back same day, especially if I just watched it. It was electric. But I think it's time that we change. JK is on a flight right now. Marcus Wallace is on a flight right now, headed to Houston to race their way into the World Championships. It's just top 3. I think we're at a point where we need to have qualifiers for the majors or something like that. And I don't think that times from majors should count for your 2 times to get in. I just think that we just see, and it's also this thing of is there a rock zone? Is there not a rock zone? They're not the same courses. Now, I guess you all are track people, as we learned on Tuesday, and I am not, although I'm learning. But I mean, you even do like there's is there not a calculation done for if you run on an indoor track that converts to what an outdoor track would be?
Or if
why
it's
don't we
banked.
do?
There's even indoor tracks that are 200 meters or 300 meters or 200 banked or 200 flat.
Right. I'm on a bike right now.
Well, now you've invalidated Matt's. All of his...
He's going to Houston.
So I was thinking that though, like for indoor track specifically, because this was a 4-lap course. This is like half of a regular one, right? And less rock zone. So did we get this wrong? Did this actually make it a faster course because of its setup? We all thought that the turns were going to be strange, but also people could be picking up the pace around them just to get around the curve faster than someone else. I mean, certainly it went faster. It surprised us all.
I mean, Michelle, you've literally been running indoor track recently. Would you say that your times indoor on a half the distance per lap, because it's 200 meters presumably for indoors, like, are you running faster than you think you would at outdoors?
I mean, the variables are different. There's no wind, there's nothing, there's no weather. It's always going to be the same circumstance, but the turns I think were the outlier for me, but it genuinely proved that it was faster. So I don't know. Maybe it was just easier to manage for everyone to go around.
I just look at world records indoor, and they're always slower than outdoor. So no matter what, even if you're running the same distance, if you change the layout, you're gonna have differences in times.
Yeah,
that's the root of the problem.
But see, we're arguing the wrong thing, or we're arguing against our own point, which is that the course was fast. Indoor is always slower. Turning is always slower than going straight. So there's only two things that could make a difference here. The first is
that's the thing that's crazy. 30 turns, and we got these times.
Right. So the only thing is that if people had disrupted rhythm running, it brought them to a rhythm that they didn't know was attainable, and they all broke through with that. Like if they all decided we need to work these turns and we need to try to keep people in sight or get out of sight, and they accelerated every turn, and you're taking tenths on every turn rather than settling into a substandard run, trying not to blow up. If everyone in the field did that, it could explain a faster time.
Yeah.
Or the course is just so different that it's fast. Like, those are the only two possibilities. Which one makes more logical sense?
That is an interesting point, though, because we did see something yesterday that we don't normally see, which is everybody is in it together on the runs, even if you're behind, because it was so condensed. And we saw people get boost. Like, there was the moment where Rich and JK passed Hunter, gave each other a fist bump, and then it was like both of them got a little, like, a mental boost, because that meant something to both of them in a way of like, okay, yeah, like, it's on, right? And so maybe like never being out of it, but I think that that's relatively unlikely. The only other thing I'll say on the course that we need to move on to the race, because we spent too much time on this, is I did not like it because I actually think it posed a safety threat. We watched Kate Davey roll an ankle on a turn, and actually Till made a point. JK on several turns, as he was, I don't know if it's because the floor was wet or what, he was running so fast that you kind of saw his foot fly out. We saw at one point Sandy rolled an ankle. We saw a couple other people have some weird turns. I did not like the course from we had multiple rolled ankles. We could have had, I'll just go ahead and cut to the chase. We could have had the new top dog blow out a wheel, right? On a turn. Like, it seemed like a safety issue.
It literally looked like James was a cartoon character. You know how they like keep their feet in place and they're getting up to speed, slip. That's kind of
like the road runner.
Yeah, exactly. Just like powering up almost, because it was such a slippery corner.
It's the downside of super shoes. They can't turn. They struggle to turn. I did a track workout in these, which Rich and Pelayo and on the very least Lauren, at least 3 raced in this. And on the turns, I had to adjust my running on a 400-meter outdoor track for that shoe because of the height of it. And so it is unstable. And then you add in the fact that all super shoes are stripping down the rubber underneath. And if you have any slickness or any lack of traction, and you add in the crazy stack height and the tippiness of it, that's exposed on a course like this. So it was sketchy, and it is easy to tip in those shoes. And we saw people tipping.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to what everybody's actually here for, which is the race. Do we want to start men or women? I feel like out of respect for nearly a 2-minute world record, we need to talk about the women first.
Let's do it.
They went first anyway.
All right. On to the women. I just don't have anything left to say about Lauren Weeks. Besides the fact that was incredibly, I take notes on my phone during the race, and I literally put heavy sled is still a pain point for Lauren. I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but she seemed to struggle with the push. She gave up the entire lead that she had. And then by burpees, she was back in command. She made up a ton of ground on sled pull. And then by burpees, I think if she wasn't in the lead, I don't know if anyone has the leaderboard. If she wasn't in the lead, she got back into the lead fairly quickly and then never looked back. And I thought not that Lauren, so she was 24 seconds behind Joanna into the burpees. She left 11 seconds behind Joanna. So she made up 13 seconds. She was 3 seconds behind her in the row. She came into Farmers first and never looked back. Joanna is I think we all agree she's a threat. It's going to be, I think, if you're
future 111 record holder, world champ, greatest.
Yeah, it's Lauren, it's Meg, it's Joanna, and Joanna has beaten Lauren this year. Granted, it was in Hong Kong, but still, she beat her. And for Lauren to hit a sled that didn't move, I won't call it heavy. We're not going to spend any more time talking about courses or equipment, but hit a sled that didn't necessarily move the way that maybe she wanted it to, and then work her way back and overtake Joanna, and then have that final quarter of the race that she had and set the world record. I mean, what's the hole in her game?
Have you ever seen an athlete just take it out so fast? That obviously they had a 25-second lead, Joanna and Lauren, by the time they touched the ski erg. That's just the opening run. We were watching that, and I was like, Matt, I know I was giving you crap, but I'm like, I think they actually are going 23-second 200 pace right here. They were absolutely flying. And then at some point, Lauren, like you said, got gapped, and then she took it back and then put a gap later. Like, I've never seen an athlete not go wire to wire, or at least just sit on the shoulder of someone pacing them if they're going to set a record. And she basically did it the hard way, and it was so impressive.
She just doesn't give up. Like, she just goes and gives her 110% effort in whatever situation that she's in. It doesn't matter if she's coming out 7th from the sleds or 1st. She's just going all in, and it's awesome. And it was just really cool to see Joanna just continue to push the pace with her. If she wants to win the race against her at World Champs, that's what she's got to do. And it was really exciting to see her stay with her the whole time and go back and forth.
Yeah, it's a testament to her mentality as an athlete, because you know that you can make up for a slow station with a fast station from an energy standpoint. But staying on it mentally to do that when you've given up a lead is really difficult. But I think what she proves, and I think JK proved it as well, is that you can't hit the first 3 stations with high intensity and then the 4th. Like, if you want a good burpee broad jump, one of the first 3 has to give. And her sled push gave. It may not have been intentional, but she broke 3 times in the final, 8 meters. And I'm sure that's really frustrating. But if that saved her legs, and that saved her from tipping over in terms of an intensity standpoint, then she burpeed right back into it. And we saw that across the board. You can't crank the ski, crank the push, and crank the pull, and then continue to attack from there. So yeah, she had a wobble, but because she stayed mentally in it, that wobble may have been the reason she was able to then make up time, because Joanna was feeling it for a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think that I mean, who knows? Like maybe it was, we don't know. We don't have insight into these athletes' plans. Sometimes it becomes obvious after the fact. Like, well, I think what Rich's plan was fairly obvious if you go back and look at the race, and we'll talk about that when we get there. And so maybe that was the plan. BK was they know that the push is like it's not necessary. She doesn't have many weak spots, but it's not one of her strengths, and so maybe she did it intentionally. But the fact that she gave up her lead, was about 30 seconds behind Joanna and then finished about 30 seconds ahead of her. She made up a minute in the back half of the race. Like, you got to think, like, I mean, she already did the seemingly impossible last year, which was fell all the way back to 8th at sled push at Worlds and came all the way back to 2nd. Now you got to think, if you're Lauren, and she was still moving on those runs, like, you got to think that, like, I mean, I think that she always has a good mentality, but she's got to be feeling bulletproof going into Worlds. Like, if she has a bad station or a bad run or anything, she's not out of it. Like, unless that gap better be minutes if you think that you're going to put her away.
She's still very respectful of the competition when she speaks, though. Like, she doesn't think that anyone, like, she knows that people are right behind her. So yeah, she's still got to stay on her game regardless. She knows that people are going to continue to challenge her. Is there anyone
that's more likable than Lauren Weeks in the sport? I mean, she's arguably the best. She's the greatest of all time. And she's like the nicest human being. So it's just like,
I'm getting sick of it.
Tired of it.
I'm ready for a villain.
She's getting the Chris Rogloski treatment from Bracken.
Yeah. Chris is a villain. Don't let her fool you.
Okay.
No, I mean, Lauren is the easiest person to root for from every angle. Because if you're like, I love the fact that we have a mom out there who has a kid and is still doing this, like, that works for you. And if you're like, I just need an assassin, a cold-blooded killer who's willing to just throw caution to the wind and go, like, that does it for you too. And if you're like, I need a comeback story, like, well, she might be an 8th and comeback. She just checks every single one of those viewership boxes. She's the easiest to root for.
I think it's absurd when I mentioned the 25-second gap that they had touching the skier from the start. Like, the rest of the field just respects and is like, I am not doing this. You don't see that on the men's side for the most part, where everyone's like, all right, we're going out because that's the pace we're going out. I feel like the rest of the women's field was like, you know what?
Because Lauren it's dumb.
Are on a different level. I agree. And look what happened. You got 8 more, but of the athletes, not Lauren and Joanna, 8 of them set a PR. Yes, we talked about the course, but by trusting, I shouldn't go out at this pace, it worked out for them in terms of time.
Yeah. They're just smarter than, I'd say 80% of the field is smarter than 50% of the men's field in terms of race tactics. There were some men who went out and raced like the women raced, but all the women except for 2 raced that way. They ran their race. It was strung out 30 seconds in. Whereas the guys, like, there were people trying to bridge the gap, and there are people going 140 flat on the skier. Women just did their thing.
I don't want to jump over it. It feels cheap to, like, not talk about Joanna's performance when she would have also set the world record if Lauren Weeks wasn't there. But we did say that, I mean, she is the future. She's going to be 1-1-1 in everything. She's going to probably have all the records at some point and most likely be a world champion. The performance outside of Lauren that probably impressed me the most was Sika. She has not necessarily done well in majors. We've seen her in majors before, and she's not typically up there in the front of the pack. She did do well in the age group world championships at Nice, but I literally put a note in there that Sika in it early ? She was 3rd into the push, and she finished. What she finished 4th, right? Yeah, she finished 4th with a big PR at which we won't talk about the time, but impressive. Like it's kind of that that idea of like, hey, are you just gonna? We did just say that it's stupid, but would there be anybody who would put their nose into it and try to hang on? And Sika seemed to be that person. She stuck her nose in it early, and she was able to walk out with a qualifying spot and probably full of confidence going into Worlds.
Yeah, although I made a note as well, but I visually I was watching it, and Sika and Lucy kept like confusing me during the first run. But if I'm remembering correctly, she wasn't crazy fast into the ski. She came off the ski well. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me look.
Because I don't think she.
I remember Jezebel had a really good ski, and I think it might have been Sika had a.
I thought
Dude,
Sika.
Jezebel put herself in it. I thought that she did not, like, she was last into the ski, but then she moved up, and then she was gaining ground, and then I think she ultimately cracked. But
I think Sika got moving on the ski.
She was fourth into the ski. She was third out.
Yeah. So, but either way, it was a big jump forward in terms of you saw her on camera the whole time, and you couldn't say that prior. She was, like you said, she was in it, but she started to look like she was out. She got caught, and then she wall-balled herself right into it.
Which after last race, what happened to her in the wall balls? It's like, you're telling me you're going to go out faster after running out of juice? Like that was gutsy.
Well, I think they mentioned that she dialed in on nutrition more, so she must have been feeling better to be able to give that performance and to be confident enough to stay in that spot. So something changed.
Yeah. Can you imagine having that most recent memory, and then on lunges, people catch up to you, and then you're like, I've done all of this, and I'm still not totally sure if I'm going to stay conscious during this next thing. Like, that is just a huge barrier to clear, and she cleared it really well.
Yeah.
So she had a strong middle. She left farmers carries in fourth. She was fifth going into the lunges. She was fifth coming out of the lunges, and then at that point, Linda was nipping at her heels. And then she overcame Lucy at wall balls and held off Linda to get that spot, which was impressive. It was impressive. It's like, you put yourself in it, you get punched a little bit. Like you said, you got got a little PTSD coming into that back half, and to finish strong. Thought it was a really cool thing to see. And again, that's someone who is still relatively young. I believe that just looking at some of her past times, she competes in the 25 to 29 age group. So she's still got a lot of years ahead of her. Fresh, has been able to run a 61 in the past. Could be someone who, in the next couple of years, we're talking about, fighting for a podium spot.
Yeah, she literally beat last major's podium winner, Linda Meyer, by about 20 seconds. And her previous majors were 7, 7, 11, and 12. So biggest breakthrough by far. I know, obviously, you mentioned that great race in Nice, but she wasn't head-to-head against some of these top athletes. But I think after overcoming that nutrition issue that led to the wall ball collapse last time, she's going to be the real deal at World Championship in that next pack.
For sure. Other impressive performances, Lucy Proctor, for a guy that is not gifted with height, like the dudes on this show. Lucy Proctor is inspiring. I mean, she goes into the ski and she comes out of the ski last or second to last every single time, which can be a mind messer, so to speak. I'll keep it PG. That can mess with you mentally, and she just doesn't care. She just rips the runs, rips the stations, and she is putting herself in the race at the end. Another, top 5, 6 finish in an elite race. And she's even younger. I think she's like 22, 21.
She won't be able to rent a car legally by herself in Chicago. Not that she should get a car in Chicago, but
easy, Marcus. Yeah. We're getting there. We're saving it for last.
Yeah. Chill, Marcus. Chill,
easy.
Brother. But I mean, just incredible. I mean, the future is bright in the sport across the board. But some of the women that are coming in and like starting to put up, I mean, Joanna is 22, 23. Lucy is 22, 23. I think Sika is like 25, 26. Like, we've got that kind of like next generation of athletes who are putting up crazy times, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, they're fearless.
Do we have any other storylines on the women's side that we want to go to before we appease Marcus here?
I think Kate Davey having her issue early on, that kind of was a big that was a bummer, especially having like they mentioned that her kids were there watching her, you know, it was a relatively local race for her. So felt bad that she wasn't in contention.
Yeah, they pulled their kids out of school. They pulled their kids out of school so they could go and watch her race. I mean,
it ended up being a rolled ankle. Is that what it was?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's probably, I'm sure that they're going to get imaging done. Hopefully it's nothing more than that.
Hey, ankles don't seem to matter in Hyrox. I hope it's a bad ankle injury, just like Sean.
Well, and she's a toe runner. Like if you run up on your toes in high platform shoes and you start to roll, it's rolling. There's no getting that back. Like you said, dangerous course, maybe, Matt. It was for her.
Yeah. I'll be interested. We know that one Ricky Rose, Ryan, Rich Ryan,
all the names.
We know that on one of his 42 podcasts, he'll surely talk about the race that he had. I'd be curious, as a toe runner himself and someone who wore high platform carbons, I'd be curious as to his perspective. This is the shoe talk that I would actually that I would like to see.
And
other
last thing before, I know we were going to talk Vivian, Just Petro making worlds. So congrats.
Yeah. Wild card, baby. Wild card. She's been feeling it. She's on Team Proven now. All those Aussies are pairing up. I mean, Jess was impressive.
She looked strong, really strong.
She progressed. I watched her in the first third, and I was thinking, I wonder what's off. And then her stride on the last 3 runs looked increasingly better. And it's like, oh, this is who she can be right here. And it was no longer what's wrong. It's going right now. And she looked stronger each run. And that is a Hyrox component that is so nice to have.
12th out of the push, 6th out of the burpees. So same point you just made, BK. You can't hit all 4 front stations hard. And was that intentional? Because then she was surging through the middle. And, you know, as someone who's going to race this weekend, it actually got me thinking, the worst feeling in the world is fading in the middle. I wonder what it would be like to race feeling like you're surging through the middle. And I feel like we saw that. She worked her way up. She left burpees in 6th. She gave a little bit back on the row, came out of lunges in 7th. And then that is ultimately where she finished. She held off. She had a pretty comfortable lead, but she almost overtook Lucy at the end. So very close to getting a top 6 finish. So very impressive performance for Jess. Vivian.
You lied earlier, or at least you said something wrong. Vivian had the biggest breakthrough.
That was awesome. Awesome to see.
In my opinion, you were wrong on that.
Yeah, that's fair. Although Vivian did finish 1 place ahead of where she normally does. Sika finished like 5 or 6, but I hear you.
That's true. Position-wise, Sika broke through. 3-minute PR, doesn't matter what course. She PR'd
running in no man's
than
land.
Anyone else did.
She was in no man's land.
Hardest way to run. Other than
she was too far back of. She wound up finishing 3 minutes behind Joanna, but a minute ahead of Sika. That is the definition of no man's land.
I don't know if you guys were listening to her interviews, but she also mentioned that it was like a very comfortable feeling race. So I can't wait to see what's next from her.
Yeah. She's healthy. We know that she hasn't been healthy. You know, she had a breakthrough toward the end of last year where she ran that PR although she wasn't in the last chance qualifier, she was at that race. She ran a PR by herself. I remember Race Brain talking about how impressive it was that she ran such a big PR running by herself. Is this the ascension of Vivian? She did well at Worlds, and then, you know, she just kind of had some bad luck going into this year. But that was an impressive race. And she kind of the same thing. She started off, she worked her way up, I believe. Yeah, coming into the push, she was 10th in, so she chilled on the ski. We're noticing a theme. She left the push in 5th. She came into the pole 4th. She left the pole in 3rd. She gave a little bit of time back, or actually she walked out. She ran out with Sika on the, or came into the burpees with Sika, left with Sika, and then got into third, and then basically never looked back. Started putting time on Lucy and Sika. By farmers, she had a 20-second gap. By lunges, she was 2.5 minutes behind the lead pack, and but a minute ahead of Lucy, who at the time was in fourth. So she worked her way up and then just did what she had to do to finish, which I personally thought was impressive, because at that point she knows she's got it locked up, and it would have been easy to kind of cruise control in, and that's not what she did. She finished strong.
Yeah, that third place performance at Worlds, like another third place performance. I think we have to get rid of that honorary Dolores spot for locking her in fourth place. Like, she's proved she's not just a fourth place racer anymore.
Yeah, she will. I mean, she is definitely probably going to be going into Worlds. She's got to be one of the favorites for that second pack. I think she's right up there with the Lindas of the world now. You know, Linda's, Lucy's. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. I still think that there is a fairly big gap between that lead pack and the second one, but I think that fourth place could be hers. Just put it on the trophy now.
And I mean, Vivian got 14th place earlier this year in Amsterdam and 10th in Las Vegas, and then just separating herself from just no man's land, like you said, this race in third. Her trajectory is clearly in the right direction. She's going to be on U.S. soil. I know that you guys make fun of that, but I think it will be an advantage. Only a couple hours flight for World Championship.
We don't make fun of home soil.
I know.
We make fun of the difference between 40 minutes from the venue and 47 minutes from the venue.
Okay.
Any other closing thoughts on Vivian?
I mean,
good job.
Yeah, she crushed it.
She said it was comfortable. She said she felt good the whole way. But she wasn't in no man's land the entire time. She got to no man's land during the second half. She came out of burpees, which is maybe the most uncomfortable spot of the race for some people, and still felt that way. So it's not just like she was alone, didn't have a battle. This was a under duress feeling good. So that's a good sign for if she is in a battle later on in the second half, that it's not just that she got in a weird rhythm because no one was disturbing her.
Yeah. Fair. Rounding out the women, Linda Meyer, I believe this is a PR for Linda. She finished 60.49 in fifth. Lucy Proctor, sixth at 60.57. Jess Petro, 6.59. Zara Piergiani, I believe this is also a PR, 61.45. Camilla Massa, 61.58 with a PR. Jezebel Kramer with a PR at 62.57. That's your top 10 women. The only other thing that I would note in this field, I think, with Tanya, I think that you kind of called this on Tuesday, first elite race. I think maybe she was a little bit over raced at this point. 3 races in a very short amount of time. That's tough to do. We still have not seen the best of Viola. That was, I'm sure she's she's obviously going to be the most disappointed in this. She's going to have to race her way in via the last chance qualifier. I wouldn't count her out, but hope that she is able to come back. Marcus says that she was hurt. And so wishing her I don't know how Marcus has that information, but wishing her a speedy recovery. If Marcus has the inside scoop on the hybrid engine and the Germans, we might all need to watch out for what's about to happen in Houston. All right, on to the dudes. I will start this by saying that I said that I would admit if I was wrong, and I was wrong. And I think that we had talked about, was this going to be the year of Ronkovic and no one's really going to run away with it and it's wide open. I think that it is fair to say, after what we watched yesterday, that James Kelly is the front runner in the men's field. just to get us all up to speed. We talked about how amazing Ronkovic's race was in Amsterdam. I think we mentioned this, though. People forget JK finished like 15 seconds behind him, almost overcame him on the wall balls. JK got him in Hong Kong, and then looked like he tried a strategy maybe in Vegas, didn't work out, and yesterday was one of the most impressive championship races that I have seen since watching Hyrox. He was measured on the stations. He did what he always does. He took it out hot. Him and Tim were kind of battling on that first run. He came into ski second. I went and looked this up. I actually think he left ski. I mean, for the record, he did not ski slowly. He came out, he had a 344 ski, but he came out in fifth. And then he worked his way back up on the runs like he always does. Came into the sled push third, left in fourth, came into the sled pull fourth, left in third, came into the burpees third, left in first. That's when he made his move, and then just accelerated through the back half of the race. I actually remember at one point they were talking about world records, and I think it might have been into the row. And I believe that our good friend Greg said, this is an impressive time. He's about 30 seconds off the world record. So probably won't get it, but he's making a push for it. And then I think it was Jake, who, by the way, we didn't talk about this. Jake was very impressive on the broadcast. It was very good. I hope that he gets in the Elite 15, but if not, he should be considered for a color commentator because he was good. And he said, I don't know. We've seen JK do this in the past. He might close strong, and close strong he did. He obliterated the field in the back half of the race. I mean, I don't know where he gets this boundless energy from, but wow.
Is his combo of burpees and then run after the burpees the biggest weapon in the sport right now on the men's side?
I mean,
combined with all his transitions.
Yeah, obviously transitions, but that's
340 run 4, 341, burpee broad jump 250, run 5, 340 into a 352 row into a 330. He accelerated into a 337 run 6, a 117 farmer's carry, a 333 run 7. So he is getting faster. 311 run 311 sandbag lunge into a 4-minute run 8, and then a 336 wall ball. I mean, I don't know. Can you guys think of anybody who accelerates their runs in the last half and does stations like that?
Visually, you don't see it from anyone else but him. Yeah.
And I think that matters. I think that it's important that he's cutting down time, but he demoralizes people with how he looks when he's running. You see him go past you or leave, and you know, I'm not looking like that. So even if you happen to be running his pace, he looks faster, but he also is faster. It's just a double-edged sword that it has to be depressing to deal with in the second half of a race. Because he doesn't look like he's feeling the things that everyone else is feeling, and they know that.
And when when you're dying on a station and see someone sprint out, I got to imagine he's dying. I'll ask him this weekend. I got to imagine that he's hurting, but what that does to people. Oh, he's still in the chat. JK, if you're listening and you can hear us live right now, he won't tell us that. He won't tell us that. That's probably a trade secret. But I have to imagine that the way he attacks the rock zone has to hurt him, but what it does to everyone else mentally, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Why do more athletes not? We'll get his. There we go. Why do more athletes not try to follow that strategy? I know it's gonna hurt, but it's like we saw him. He was 14 seconds down leaving the ski. It's like maybe you guys are going a little too fast at the beginning. Like we saw the smart racing strategy in the women's field. James, yes, he's putting himself in position. You already mentioned, Bracken, that someone is going to have to be, a lot of people are going to fall apart before the race, but someone's going to hold on and, you know, make a move in the second half. Why do more athletes not do that?
The women all do, except for two. James is not running, by anyone else's estimation, a smart strategy. You can't emulate his strategy. You can't surge the first run and raise and re-raise people's moves when they try to pass you and then accelerate in and then still ski 144, 146 pace.
I'd be interested what his pace was, but his total ski time was 3:44. That's going to include the transition in and the transition out, which means that at minimum he was probably, if I had to guess, he's probably skiing a 144, 145, which is not slow.
No.
But that's 10 seconds slower than Hunter and Tim were doing. Like he was.
Yeah. My point is he's crazy.
Tim was pulling 141s, 142s. Yeah.
He just pulls back slightly on the ski, but his runs are so aggressive for what everyone else can sustain. So I don't even think we can emulate what I think he's one of one with strategy outside of maybe Lauren. Lauren's the only one who can run somewhat the way he does. The strategy of holding back on one of the first three, I think anyone can emulate, but he's not running smart by anyone else's metrics. Just his.
Yeah. And they got to think like it feels like they talked about this on the broadcast too. And I think that there's probably some validity to this. JK is a strong runner. And now it's no secret. He's the Hyrox coach for Team Proven. He's been getting to work out consistently with Tia, with James Newbury, with Ricky. He's working out with some of the best athletes in like, not in the sport, but like in the world. Like
fitness.
Tia is arguably the greatest female athlete of all time. Ricky Garrard, of fitness. Ricky Garrard is the third fittest man of fitness. I'll finish it for you, Bracken. James Newbury is high levels. So there's like the whole concept of like, if you want to be, if you hang out with millionaires, you'll be a millionaire. If you hang out with poor people, you'll be a poor people. JK is hanging out with world-class athletes that are only going to continue to lift him. Like, I haven't been willing to say this at this point. I feel like it's wide open. I think that, there are some people that on their day could get him, but if we were picking, like if we were placing bets, I'm like the money line's on JK for Worlds. Like he's the dude now.
Yeah. I mean, he has been beaten. We saw him in Las Vegas. He got 4th place.
I would argue he beat him.
He beat him.
But you're correct. Well, he had mess ups on course.
Okay.
But you're right. He's beat a bull, but it takes something.
Yeah. He also last year we saw for the 4 majors.
Jack, did you freeze? Or did I just
you shut him down.
Okay. Continue, Jack. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, yes, he is the favorite, but I don't feel like it's in the same respect that maybe like a Lauren, just because of how big of a gap there was. Yes, he created it over the course of the race, but he has been beatable by a reasonable amount.
I agree. I don't think it's going to be a runaway, but I think he's first among equals now. I think last year we saw 4 different winners of a major. This year JK has won 2 and almost won a 3rd. I think he's got the edge right now.
He does, but then like the next time we see Ronk, we might say the opposite. It's still a very even playing field, but he has now the scariest skill set. I think Hunter doesn't have that anymore currently. Right now, I think James is now the scariest person to race.
I mean, we just saw James Kelly run 53:23. Alex ran a 53:28 with open weights, like in the past month. James has got to be, and I know no 2 courses are the same, but that's insane when you think about it.
That's a good stat.
Yeah.
Michelle, any thoughts on JK?
I just can't wait to see what World Champs brings. The cool thing is that he's had all of these opportunities to play out, play out different strategies. And I think that's going to be to his benefit because he knows how to execute at the most important race. that's the only thing that I'll say about everyone else too. When they're going into these majors, there is strategy playing out for just getting that world champ spot. So we might not have seen like the bold moves from everybody to really challenge him at the top. I mean, this is all speculation, but world champs is the race. So it's going to be a different strategy, I feel like, from everybody, including JK. But he's had some great opportunities in all of these majors to really try out some things, and he's been extremely successful. So yeah, congrats to him.
I had a thought during the race though, and that is that when people are this fast and are rewarded for it, they edge closer to the line of tipping over with each new strategy attempt. And we've seen it like when Hunter goes out crazy hot, or any of these people who at some point they just go a bridge too far and they crack. Because they're so aggressive already, they're close to the line. And during the race yesterday, I thought they had reached it. The way Tim and JK went out, I thought during the second run, Sandy wins this race. He was the only one of the first four that wasn't trying to like swing it back and forth with them. He was sitting there. And it obviously didn't happen, but there's still that scenario at World Championships that's on the table, that everyone shows up there a little more fit with way more adrenaline, and they just miss by one notch too hot, and you have that next group come through and someone pulls a Tobias and just wins it. I don't think anyone's a lock for a win yet, just because of how dangerous the game is that they're all playing.
I can see your point, Bracken. And if we look at the men's field, we do have 4 to 6 male athletes who are willing to go out. Someone's going to hang on. He has to worry about several other athletes in the women's field. It's probably going to be Lauren, Meg, and Joanna realistically. So fewer people you need to fall apart and worry about having a really good race. So yeah, I can see your point there. But he did mention in the post-race interview, he's like, I'm just going to mainly do a lot of the stuff that's been working so far. So I feel like if this is the strategy that's been working and he's just going to do a lot of the same result or workouts, you're probably going to get a similar result.
Yeah. Which I think, talking about the ascension of JK, leads us to the next most obvious topic, which is it finally time to say that Hunter McIntyre is just another dude in the field, which feels sacrilegious. And I know that, and I know what BK is going to say, because BK is the only one that's actually stood against him on a race line. But time comes for us all. People have caught, he had an advantage coming into the sport. It has now been almost a year and a half since Hunter has won a major, and he has not seemed to change his strategy. He, JK and Tim kind of were the new Sandy and Ronkovich. They took turns surging on him in run one, pulled him into the ski. Hunter was pulling 137s, 138s, came out first, went into the push with Tim, left. Tim actually passed him on the push. So you've got the visual of Tim Vinish next to a mountain of a man, pushing it like you're pushing it, came out with Hunter, was surging on Hunter in the second run. Hunter comes into the pull. He leaves the pull in first, but expends a ton of energy. Sandy, Tim, and JK are right there nipping at his heels.
And
he
Tim
comes into
screwed up on the pull also.
Yeah, and Tim had a penalty. Yeah, Tim had a penalty. They come into burpees together, and then JK makes his move. Tim makes a move. Hunter's 20 seconds back, and then basically the rest of the race, we just watch him fade out, which, BK, you have mentioned plenty of times. Can Hunter win if he's not winning after the burpees? And the answer seems to be no. And he's not putting enough of a gap in the first half. Like, the gap's not going to be there. He's never going to leave. Like, we're never going to have Manchester 2023 again, where it's over after the sled push.
Yeah. Well, watching this, thought, has there ever been a Hyrox athlete or hybrid or OCR or anyone in our sphere more affected by a rule change than Hunter and the burpee broad jump form? Because he is an enormous man, and he had the Hunter hop that he did, and he stayed low to the ground, and he kept his bulk moving. And as soon as the rules changed, and he had to put his hands next to his feet and drop straight down and straight back up. He is just moving more weight than almost anyone else is. And he no longer has momentum or an efficiency of movement. And just to the point now where you saw him debut a new form he's never used before. And that still didn't cut it. He went from the best burpee broad jumper in the sport to now it's his Achilles heel over one rule change. And in a sport like this, I'm not explaining away his performance, but I've never seen a glaring example of one tweak to the sport completely change someone's outlook before.
That's a good observation. That
is a great observation, but he's used to getting into the burpees with a gap, and he hasn't gotten to the burpees with a gap in 15, 16 months.
No. But now he used to drop people on burpees if they were there or extend, and now he's getting past.
Getting dropped.
And and it's the end of it. And so I don't know what the answer is. We could speculate a lot of ways of which to go. One of which is I don't believe the future is big in this sport. I think the future is lean and muscular endurance. I don't think the future is bulk in this sport. But the fact is, it's not the same performance anymore. Or it's the same performance in the field has just risen up, but you can't win in the first four stations anymore.
We saw one multiple-time world champion, Lauren Weeks, get out front, struggle a little bit on the sleds, make it up on the burpee broad jumps, have a dominating win, set a world record. We saw another Hunter McIntyre get out hard, fade a little bit on the sleds, and then fall apart on the burpee broad jumps. So different directions right there.
Yeah.
And he finished 9th.
1 second behind. So it could have been 7th realist, but
okay.
Yes,
I don't like, here's my point. And all of the Hunter stands are going to come at me hard. You can make all the excuses in the world, and you can say that he was partying it up in Brisbane and he flew across the world to come from Australia to Glasgow, and all of that can be true. But his brand, BK has talked about it, that when he's on the start line, that he sucks something out of the air. Like Hunter is this larger than life personality. He literally, went off to do paddling, and he came back and he made a video running through the mountains and said, if you're my competition, I got bad news for you. The best that you can do is second. And it's this beating of the chest, and it's this bravado, and it's this, I'm going to just dominate. And this is no disrespect to the other names in the field. So I want to be very clear. I'm not disrespecting them. He lost to Sean Noble and Tomash. Like, he didn't just like fade and crack. And it's not that he lost to JK, and it's not that he lost to, a Sandy. Like, these are people who are roll downs or fighting for 15th. And like, these people aren't even in the same conversation as Hunter McIntyre. Right? Like, I'm not trying to overstate it here, but like, if he makes the post and he does whatever, and you could say that that's all just gamesmanship, but like, you expect that when Hunter is on the start line, that he is going to dominate and that he is going to wind up on a podium. We saw him fade and crack in Worlds, right? He finally raced Vegas and he got beat by Dylan Scott, and then who now can't wait for the top 5 rankings. I was definitely wrong on that. And then last night we watch him just fade. And I'm just saying, like, he used to be invincible, and we were giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think you can say that he's invincible anymore.
Well, here's the question too. Do we think that this fade was a mental fade or a physical fade? I don't really know. I feel like at Worlds, like, he looked like he was still trying really hard. Do we feel the same for this effort? Do we think he gave up at the end? Do we think this was physical or more mental?
Hunter might be the best example of an athlete I've ever met where it's indistinguishable. His metrics that he can put out on race day have never made sense for what his skill set is. His running has never made sense for what his running ability is. He is the ultimate example of mind over matter. The beating of the chest, like, he had that kind of like Conor McGregor thing where it was so loud and different and boisterous that people knew they were going to get knocked out, and everyone in the crowd knew it. But when it stops happening, it stops being as effective. It becomes more noise than it becomes a weapon. And we're starting to see that. I don't think, like I talked about, the armor, the aura, the thing that he sucks away from everyone else. If you see him enough times in the competition and you get used to it and you're not getting crushed anymore, it's not as effective. And so with him, if he's lost even an ounce of that insane self-belief of just like utter invulnerability, then his metrics are going to drop immediately because they're so directly tied to each other.
We've seen Eliud Kipchoge end up getting beaten recently. We've seen in the past Mike Tyson. He had that bravado, like just scariest man on the planet. Eventually, he got knocked out right in the 1500. Now we've got 4 guys: Josh Kerr, Yard Nagoose, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and Cole Hawker. Like someone's gonna miss out on a world championship on the podium at some point. And I feel like Hunter's obviously always been in that upper realm, but there are just so many more good guys who are capable of beating him these days that you can't just show up and expect to win. And that aura, I don't think that a lot of people are afraid of anymore.
Yeah, it's not a anymore.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. To be clear, Hyrox is not Hyrox without Hunter McIntyre. We're going to look back and what he did for the sport to bring eyes to the sport and what the sport has eventually turned into. That doesn't happen without Hunter. But he's not. It used to be it was Hunter over everybody and you're just battling for second. And we were surprised when he got beat. But now this is a pattern. And again, like you can make the excuses, but if you are the world's greatest, there are no excuses. It doesn't matter if you had traveled. If that's the tone that you're gonna take, that I'm the best and I can't be beaten, then you don't get to say, well, yeah, I was tired from jet or whatever. Like you just don't get that excuse.
Well, the result echoes as loudly as the pre-race does. Like the louder your pre-race is, the louder your result is, and it matters. So he still could win world championships, and I don't think that shocks anyone. But the fact that we're saying could now is a paradigm shift. Was not, that word could did not exist until end of last year, start of this year. So this is the type of athlete that you either can't come back from this or they come back scary because it just eats at him every second of his day into world championships. The fact that he took 9th. I know it eats at him that Dylan Scott beat him. So we might see Hunter the way we saw him in Dallas one year, show up looking like 20 pounds different than the last time we saw him and just flying. Or we might see that this is just father time comes for everyone. We don't know which one it is. But again, the fact that we're talking about it is not a conversation we've had in the past.
It's been since Stockholm 2023 when he won a major. I think he's got 2nd a couple times, 9th here, 5th at Worlds. It's been a while since he's stood on the top of the podium at a big race.
And then the final piece is that he might be living this sport less than anyone in the field. He's dealing with professionals now. He wasn't dealing with professionals early on.
Yeah.
He used to look at everyone and say, no one knows how to train for this and no one trains enough. That's not the case anymore. The question now is, are people doing too much?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Speaking of father time, there is an athlete who was beginning to wonder, is this sport going to pass me by? Am I just too old? I don't have much time left in running. Should I podcast less because I need to focus on the sport? Because who knows how much time I have left. And our boy, Rich Ryan, everyone's saying was Chicago fast. Is he actually a 54 guy? Can he do better than 58? And our man emphatically said, I am a 54 guy. So much so that I'm going to give you 2 54s. Rich Ryan with a 3rd place, 54-54. Who wants to go first talking about our man?
Bravo, Rich. I mean, yeah, that just executed so well for him. I just think that he knew what he was going to do all along. You know, I think he knew going in that he didn't have to win the race. He just wanted to go out there with the strategy of getting that world champ spot. And wow, it worked out in his favor, even more so, landing on the podium. This should give him so much confidence going into World Champs, being able to place that high with the strategy that, you know, he wanted to execute. And he's got to be feeling good after that. It didn't look like it was effortless. It looked like, honestly, he kept gaining momentum the entire time.
It was a smart race. Like he paced himself well on the skier, moved up, and as soon as he got past the burpee broad jumps without the judge calling him back over and over and over again, like his running form looks so good. Then he gave that fist bump to James Kelly, and I was like, he's got 100 wall balls in his arsenal. He's one of the few people in the field who can go unbroken on these. I'm like, he might podium, and then that's exactly what happened. So I think as soon as he made it through burpee broad jumps cleanly, it was over. You knew he was going to lock up that podium at worst, third or fourth, but he was making worlds no matter what.
So I'm curious from your guys' perspective, because he's done this twice now, where this is exactly what he did in Chicago. I got to see it up front in Chicago. He runs run one like he's going to run one. And then he takes ski erg like it's a pretty measured approach. I think he actually left the ski in Chicago in like 6th. I went back and looked, and that was obviously not an elite race. I went back and looked this morning. Does anyone want to take a guess on where he left ski erg yesterday?
14th.
32 seconds behind everyone else. 32 seconds. And then, but does anyone want to take a guess at where he left the push?
They mentioned him specifically on the broadcast, so he definitely moved up.
4th or 5th, right?
Yeah, 4th.
Yeah, he left in 6th. And then he left the and then he started to work his way up. By the time he got to burpees, he was in 5th, and he kind of just worked his way up. But he was about a minute behind Tim at one point. He only finished, I think it was 22 seconds behind Tim.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's the sourdough or if it's all the swimming. I don't know if it's podcasting less, although I'm sure our audience wishes he would podcast more. Maybe it's a combination. Living at elevation, combination of all of the above. But I mean, for someone who was on the outside looking in, having to get roll downs just to get a shot, he emphatically put himself in the conversation to be, you know, a potential podium threat. Like, he'll eat you up.
Well, what Rich has done is embraced an opposite approach of what a lot of the top individuals have done, which is they have worked harder at their ergs so that they can work harder at the ergs. And Rich has worked harder at the ergs so that he can give less energy on the ergs. And that is a very, very important thing to do here, because he's identified from the start, or at least in the last year or two, that the two least important stations in order are row and ski. In terms of the time swings that can happen there, they're the least important for what they can cost you if you work too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest time swings that can happen are burpee broad jumps and sled pull. And then to some extent, wall balls. And so he knows exactly what he's going to do, which is I can give away 15 seconds on the first run and 15 seconds on the ski erg, and I can take it all back on sled pull. And I can take it all back again on burpee broad jump. And now I'm ahead of where I would have been. And the energy swing that I needed there is so much less than if I had tried to maintain on ski erg. And he just knows what works for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just running an executed strategy rather than doing what everyone else up front is doing, which is chaos at the ski erg.
Rich's ski split was 18 seconds slower than Hunter's, so about 9 seconds per 500 right there for his total zone. We know the difference when you're like 2 or 3 seconds slower per 500. Like, oh, that actually feels a little easier. Can you imagine how good he felt 9 seconds slower equivalent, like getting off the skier? He must have been like, I'm ready to go, instead of like, all right, I've got to hang on a little bit. This is pretty fast.
Well, they talked about that on the row, because JK came into the row first, and then Hunter came on and was working it. And I think it was Till pointed out, like, wow, this is visually impressive. But then Greg points out, yeah, but he's rowing like 6 seconds faster than JK per 500, which is only going to be 12 seconds, which isn't enough to close the gap and the damage that it's going to do to him when he comes off. It's just like, it's interesting to me that, like, that some of these guys are still playing this game on the ergs of, I don't know if it's bravado or if it's like pride or whatever it is.
False.
But
he split 29 coming out of the row.
yeah. JK, no one here believes you. I think JK, you're probably a sub. You might be in the sub 60 club for 400s. But yeah, I mean, it makes you think, like, kind of going back to that point you made earlier, Bracken, is the actual strategy to chill relative to your fitness on the ski so that your heart rate gets up, right? Because we've all been there. You take that first run out, you feel great, and you haven't exactly like gotten your heart rate to capacity, and then you hit the ski and all of a sudden you're underwater. Is there something to just easing yourself into it and then hitting it hard in the sleds? And I think that's what Rich did. Rich attacked the sleds and he finished strong. Jack, you said he's got 100 wall balls in his arsenal. I mean, he overcame Pelayo. I don't think he's beaten Pelayo in a race. I could be wrong. Stats man, keep me honest. I don't think he's beaten Pelayo in a race, and he did all the right things.
I mean, this is why Hyrox is so fascinating. You don't have to be the best out of one station. There are 8 stations and half of it is running. You have to strategize based off all of the components together, not just one. You're not going to win the race based off of being the fastest at one station, especially one that's going to compromise you in the very beginning. It's going to play out your entire race if you give up all of your energy at the beginning. And Rich showed that if you stay composed throughout, know how to handle the stations for yourself, because everybody is different. It could work out for you if you strategize correctly based off of your strengths and weaknesses.
Well, and the machines are just so black and white. You stare at what you're doing, and it's so easy to get caught up in I could do versus I should do. And the upper body recovers slower than the lower body. The muscles are smaller, they fatigue quicker, they recover slower, and it's just not worth the squeeze. Now, it also eliminates him from being able to win that race. Like JK, Tim, Hunter, Sandy went for the win. He didn't need to, and he also ran the very best race to make the podium. So you can't win world championships this way unless everyone craters. But it just eliminates so much of that percent of you cratering. Mm-hmm. And he's such a strong runner that he keeps it available. And again, he runs the way Hunter can ski. I would say that's a fairly good comp. Like his running prowess is Hunter's skiing prowess. But one of them uses the run to be good, but not great. And the other uses their ski to be great. Like the harder you lean into it, the more it takes out of you. Rich doesn't run the way he can run. He holds back on the runs. And that's why he's closing with unbroken wall balls and things, is he's using his strengths to set up his other things. Mm-hmm. And that's a really smart way of racing.
Rich also was running to qualify for Worlds, and look at the result. He didn't go to the front. No, he's like, I'm probably fit enough. He ran a 54 something. He probably could have been, if he wanted to hang on, maybe finished on the podium still, but he ran a smart race. And honestly, if I'm him at World Championship, who's missing from the field? You've got Dylan, Alex, maybe a couple other guys. Like, this is still a strategy that easily can end you up in the top 5, which would be the best finish of his career. I know he probably wants more than that, but I think this is the thing that works for him. So I say keep doing it.
I mean, he has to feel like he has another gear after this, being able to get third this race with that strategy. So yeah, he's got to have the confidence that he does have that extra gear to actually push for, the win next time.
Yeah. Other podium threats for Worlds, Tim Vinish, great race. We saw him try this strategy in Hong Kong. He didn't quite hold on. He had a tough race in Vegas. Very impressive. He did fade a little bit, but it's hard to say someone fades when they finish with a 54-31 and in second place. But
just keeps making it further and further.
Yeah.
Further and further. He one of these days, and he's still, again, talking on the women's side about people that are young. Tim is still young. he's gonna go wall to wall one of these days. So very impressive race for Tim Vinish. The other person is the Kiwi, non-carbon shoe, Bo Wills, who I said, is there anyone else who has ascended faster from where he was before. That's another top 5 finish in a major. He edged out Pelayo. He was nipping at Rich's heels on the wall balls. 4th place, 55.02. Another hybrid engine guy working with Dr. Frankenstein, Anthony Parasini. I mean, Bo knows.
Another consistent one.
Yeah. He doesn't ever try to overextend until it's time to push that button. And then he pushes it as well as anyone pushes it in this sport.
Yeah.
And you do not want him near you at the end of a race.
You do not. He is going the Terminator in the last 2 stations. Jake Dearden, very impressive race, getting that second qualifying spot. Actually surged in the last 3 stations. That was actually a moment of brilliance, I thought, from Jake on the color commentary. Till I think actually said like it's not going to be Dearden's day or something, and Jake was like, I don't know about that. I watched him race at Bilbao, and I think he's going to come in hard, and he came in hard. Finished with a 55.44 in 6th place, securing his spot at Worlds, and then the most miraculous recovery of all time, the Irishman Sean Noble. 55.03 with the photo finish against Tomasz.
The dive of destiny.
Give it up for the wild card. Crushed it.
Yeah, give it up for the wild card. Give it up for the wild card.
I'm sorry. I was wrong. You made the right call. And now he has all the time in the world to get that ankle right. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Some people are not human. He's one of them.
Yeah. So that does give us we have 12 qualifiers now with the 3 qualifiers in this race, Jake Dearden, Sean Noble, and Ricky Rose. Any other performances on the men's side that we want to talk about?
I'm not normally a gear guy, but I do want to mention that cooling headband that Jake had.
Yeah, the Kipchoge.
We're going to see more people do that because like he talked, he's like, yeah, I didn't feel like I didn't overheat. And that kind of is making its rounds in the professional world for some of these longer races. You think we'll start seeing that?
The current way of the world in endurance sports is thinking that body temperature might be the single greatest limiter in endurance, especially in the unexplored realm of what we can control and not can control. And an indoor event with a high sweat rate and crazy output is an event made for body temperature control. So yeah, I think it's the future.
We saw how many people crack last year in Nice. They were like, no air conditioning in there. It's so hot. It's going to be different in Chicago, but Chicago in the summer. I cracked
in Nice.
Yeah. Chicago in the summer
is
not a pleasant place in terms of temperature. So it might be worth the investment if it's like $100, $200, whatever it is.
It's more.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a Red Bull athlete though. He was wearing a Red Bull. I mean, he's sponsored, so he wasn't paying for that. But yeah, I think you're right. Marcus says it's $200 for the headband. So
only.
All right. Any other
deal? I think it's more. I think it's higher generally.
Yeah, probably. Any other performances we want to talk about on the men's side?
It's gonna be wild once Alex and Dylan get back in the field.
100%. Our top 5 rankings show in a couple weeks should be fun.
So moving to the post-race, I guess, analysis, I was watching that and thought, this is like tuning in to an Olympic sport or something that I wasn't as tuned into as an outsider and watched and be like, yeah, this is just an established sport. The broadcast was so clean. The graphics were just professional. It gets
better and better every time
of a professional sport. The kind of thing where there was no reason to be turned off by anything external, which is the name of our sport, hybrid, OCR, whatever it is. Things turn you off other than the competition itself. That didn't exist here. This was like the poster child of what Hyrox should be presented as in all hybrid combined sports. It was so good.
Yeah. The multiple angles for the running turns were great this time too. I noticed that as well. I just felt like I was there, honestly, sometimes.
Yeah, I wondered if that's why they did it. The more I thought about it, did they change the elite course to make the run more visually appealing? Because at Chicago, historically, you just watch them go by and then you don't see them again until they come by a minute and a half later. And it's like, did they do that so that you could have more of the running angles? So I agree.
Not going to do that in Chicago, though.
Well, they can't. The venue physically won't allow for it.
Yeah, but
I mean, they
have
could.
balconies there. They can have people
So
zoom
they could
in
have
on
more
parts of the
cameras.
course. Yeah, this
They
could
could have more
replicated.
cameras. I'm saying they couldn't. I was meant that they could not replicate the run course, but it doesn't matter. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Any closing thoughts from squad?
I mean, I guess one other thing on the broadcast, like they keep adding more infographics, like the wall ball update where it showed how many no reps, what time they entered, the gap. Like that's the info that we want to see. We don't want to have to
for the sled push and pull, like the
we don't want to have to go to the website. And it yes, we were bashing it because it didn't exist last stream where it's like, oh, we're unable to track people live on the website. It was all there, which was really good this time.
Yeah, you should never have to ask, I wonder what blank is doing, or I wonder how far, and they did a really good job. You very rarely had to wonder what gaps were or what was happening.
The only thing I'm always still wondering is what pace they're actually going. If they get to that point, that would interest me the most.
Yeah, they used to do that for Spartan Race where they'd throw like a fake heart rate monitor. They like Bracken, I'm sure that wasn't real when they had Tom or something as a sponsor. Maybe they'll find a way to incorporate that.
They just need a Mason there with a radar gun.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
got him. I'll have to ask JK. I did notice he was wearing a heart rate strap without a watch, so I was curious where that data was going to. Maybe he had it. Maybe had it nearby. We'll have to figure out what that was about. But great production. Hats off to Hyrox. I'll play the rich role. Bracken, what we got on TRP this week?
Oh, we have the CEO of a running metric company. Has a little device that sits on your hips and gives you your stride metrics. He's also a physical therapist and has worked at the University of Oregon and with Nike in their research division. So we are interviewing him today in a few hours, actually. And then on Training Tuesday, we dissected 2 interval workouts that went a little askew in the lessons you can learn for mid-workout adjustments and post-workout analysis.
Nice. Turn it into TRP for all your running needs. Bracken, Michelle, Jack, we spent 3 hours together this week. It was a pleasure. Jack and Michelle. Yeah, I can't wait to see you guys in Houston. Hopefully we can get some post-race analysis then.
Good luck out there.
Yeah. Be well.
Good luck.
If you're in Houston, Jack, if you're in Houston, come say what's up to the Race Brain gang. We'd love to talk to you. We're out.
Later.
See ya.